Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind. You know, every argument from the left these days always seems to appeal to authority. Generally, it goes something like this: the academic said so, therefore; the expert said so, therefore; every governing body has stated, therefore. That's how every argument seems to start. The establishment dictates, therefore it must be so. You know, it'd be one thing if they were referencing institutions of credibility, trustworthy institutions that never lie with incredible track records of truth, but obviously that isn't the case here now, is it? Leftists love appealing to authority, but the actual authority, the supposed experts, not all of them of course, but many of them, constantly lie or fudge the numbers. Or of course, probably their favorite, lie by omission. Studies that are carefully crafted to end up with a result that justifies and feeds the narrative, rather than doing actual objective study and analysis. I have the perfect example for you guys today, as modern feminism once again takes a massive frickin' L. And of course the distinction is important there. Modern feminism, I don't want some new viewers thinking that I'm an anti-feminist through and through. No, just the ridiculous new age grifter nonsense. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so today let's travel to the land of the woke. Not Canada, but pretty close. We're headed to the upside down world of Australia today, where this happened.
So do you take into account the fact that on average a male full-time employee works longer hours than a female full-time employee?
Not directly, no.
You don't?
But we annualise the part-time hours and those that have worked full-time but for part of the year. So that way, because at the moment, what I can tell you is women work part-time at 3 times the rate of men. So by annualising it, we are looking at a more realistic...
So you base it on annual salary?
Yeah.
What about if you did it on an hourly rate? What would be the gender hourly pay gap?
Well, we don't have that data, Senator.
You don't have that data?
No, because we ask for annualised salaries from our employers when they report their data in.
Okay, so if a woman was working fewer hours but earning the same rate per hour as a man doing the same job, would that show up as a gender pay gap?
No.
But, well, then in that case you are looking at hourly rates.
Jenny Imbudu, Research and Analytics Executive Manager. So we do not collect the real hours that an employee might have worked. So what we do collect is the hours that are specified in a contract, and that is provided by organisations to us. If that makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, if you do you annualise it on the assumption that men and women are working the same number of hours, or is it actual earnings?
It's actual earnings, and we are unable to. We don't have the data to distinguish or to then adjust for hours, because we cannot collect the real hours that employees are working.
So it's not possible to tell whether any or some of the gender pay gap is just simply attributable to a different number of hours worked. Is that right?
It depends on whether we're looking at hours that are in contract, or whether we're looking at hours that employees worked as, overtime.
Why is it you don't look at hours worked? You don't collect it, but the ABS does. It's available.
The ABS does a survey, yes.
Every 2 years.
Yes.
But again, as I say, we collect census data, that is survey data. And the other thing I would say at this stage, Senator, is just because somebody might be sitting at their desk for 12 hours a day doesn't mean you're getting 12 hours of productivity out of them, and doesn't mean that they're working in essence any harder than someone that may sit at their desk for 8 hours.
You know, these are the supposed studies that feed the leftist worldview. The gender pay gap is a myth, and if this doesn't prove it, then I don't know what will. The world of social studies, or as some people call it, social science, where scientists simply make things up as they go. Researchers studying the gender pay gap thought it would be appropriate, since many women in the workforce work part-time, to simply take their salaries and, quote, annualize them. It's the most genius thing I've ever heard. Definitely sound in the logic department. You can sense the sarcasm. Social scientists literally fudge the numbers in order to get to their desired end result. That's exactly what this is. Women do not get paid less than men for the same work. That literally does not happen. And anybody who's suggesting that that's happening or that that's the case is probably the same type of person on Twitter who needs the concept of per capita to be explained to them when debating or discussing a topic like, I don't know, something like crime statistics. Let's try to go through the logic here. So you have many more women in the workforce who work part-time. In other words, women work less hours than men. Therefore, women make less money than men. But the social scientists decided that was inconvenient, so they annualized women's part-time salaries. Let's say a woman's working, I don't know, 20 hours a week. That's the typical part-time work. They decided, let's just take that salary and double it to 40 throughout the entire year, and boom, annualized salary. But of course that doesn't make sense. Of course you're going to end up making less money because part-time work, for the most part, pays a little bit less. Part-time work is kind of like a little side gig. In some cases, you can make good money working part-time as a waiter or waitress or a bartender. But for the most part, if you're working part-time, I don't think that's considered as a career. Maybe in some cases it could be, but for the most part, I think what I'm saying is pretty non-controversial here. But the social scientists decided that that's not a relevant factor. They're just going to take people's part-time work, or women's part-time work specifically, and annualize it and then compare oranges to apples. This method is completely idiotic. And look, I'm not a PhD like Dr. Jill Biden. Actually, I'm not anything. I'm literally a dropout. But even I, with my uneducated, smooth brain, can see right through this nonsense. And of course, that's not even the worst part. They also failed to account for hourly wages. Again, comparing oranges to apples or apples to oranges. Let's take a woman who works part-time. Maybe she decided that the workforce wasn't for her. She wanted to be mostly a stay-at-home mom and take a little side gig while the kids were at school to help supplement the family income. Let's take her and compare her salary with a high-powered attorney. Ooh, the wage gap, it's so unfair. The patriarchy. It's completely idiotic. You know, is it true that most extreme high-paying jobs, those positions are occupied mostly by men? Absolutely. Is the answer enforcing quotas? I'm not exactly convinced, but at the end of the day, it's less about representation. The argument, the wage gap argument, or I guess the premise, what you hear leftoids repeat over and over again, is that women get paid less in the same jobs as men. So let's say you have two junior engineers. Both of them graduated from MIT with the same GPA, the exact same portfolio, you know, the whole thing. It's identical, two identical candidates. Leftoids and feminists claim that engineering firm A is going to pay the male, let's say, I don't know, 120 grand as a starting salary, but when they hire the woman for the exact same job with the same credentials, they're going to pay her 75. In what universe does that happen? Obviously, that doesn't happen. And again, in this study, they completely ignored hourly wages, which is probably what you should be comparing. Take any given specific job, take that job title, separate the men, separate the women, analyze all the hourly wages, and if you come to a conclusion that women are being paid less for the same job, then maybe that's a point to start the conversation. But obviously that isn't what's happening, and it's also obvious why feminists purposely avoid this topic. They purposely avoid doing a proper analysis, an actual one-to-one analysis, because that would completely destroy their narrative. It's very plain and simple. It's quite clear that that's the case. And in fact, as we're moving forward, it seems as though young women are starting to outpace men. Young women are out-earning young men in several US cities. You can take a look at the data on the screen here. Now, broadly speaking, of course, women in this age range still only make 93 cents to the dollar in respect to what young men are earning. But the point of mentioning this study is to continue to emphasize the nuance in this conversation. There are so many factors at play here that obviously a surface level analysis of comparing the median wages of men and comparing the median wages of women obviously isn't sufficient to draw some grand conclusion that the patriarchy is suppressing women. In fact, it seems as though we're slowly headed into a new era that could probably be described as the freaking matriarchy. But anyways, you guys have probably heard all the arguments, you've seen the studies, you might have even read the books. Leftist academic experts once again prove just how disingenuous and delusional they are. And again, of course, and probably most importantly, once again, they expose their grifter, shoddy research methods. In other words, just another regular Monday. That's what I got for you guys on this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.